A little Wayne's World on them.
Well, we can put it up in the air and we can look under it and we can see where it may be leaking. These cars, you take this cover off here and the car is basically the same as like that Arnage that was just the one over there. This one is a little, the engine has different turbochargers set up, but if that Arnage was a year or so newer, these two would be virtually identical under the hood. If you go to take this off, these are like really a pain in the ass to line up. So it might like take you half an hour to get the fasteners back in place. And you gotta be careful when you lift this off, because if you break it, they don't have more. And, it's, otherwise though, under the cover, this is the same engine that's in that Silver Cloud that was in this morning. It's just got
basic 6.75.
It's just got a lot more development, and it's got fancy stuff in it. You know, different cams, turbos, a lot of electronic management, but it is basically that same engine, and it's still going. So we can pick it up, we can look at that. This is probably the rarest modern Bentley in the United States. You know that?
No, I didn't.
Now this, they sell more sedans than convertibles because more people buy those for their limousine value and practical utility. And we can look, if you're curious, if you're going back to the hotel to see how many were made, because I have the factory parts book that I can look it up in. But I'm going to guess in 2009, I had one of these in my shop this week. In 2009, they made like 105 for the whole world. And of that 105, probably no more than 30 came to North America.
Whoa.
Bentley doesn't release the figures broken down to that level, but it can't really be much more than that. And this car, being a couple of years older, I would bet the numbers are even lower.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
So, it's kind of surprising because he was looking at convertibles like this for sale, and there were like half a dozen of them for sale, and it's like, that's 1% of, it's more, that's 2 or 3% of the market offered for sale at this moment. It just seems to be how it is.
Coming up on Christmas.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Stocking stuffers.
But it's like that, like with some of these real expensive Ferraris and stuff. Some of those cars where they sold 50 of them, you can look and you find 10 of them for sale now. And I guess this the same way. These are neat cars.
Does this in Wales? So is that supposed to disappear? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Probably
it
like
retracts,
Phillips.
doesn't it?
Phillips will
Doesn't
push down.
it disappear when you lock it?
I was afraid to push. No, I've never seen.
Doesn't
it
go down
disappear.
much
There
longer.
would be there's a switch in the glove compartment that makes it.
Well, it might be like
these
Phillips.
did. I think
His will
this
just
first
push
series
down.
was just breakaway so nobody would impale themselves. I don't think they
Yeah,
actually.
and this might not. I would, what we'd have to do with this. Sometimes when people have questions like that,
it's not gonna drop.
we have the factory parts catalog, and it allows us
because
to,
it's
like, we can
extending
look the
over,
car
it
up
won't
by
drop.
serial number, and we can see what equipment it was built with. So we could do a lookup on this car, and it would tell us what this hood ornament is.
Yeah,
I don't.
I know that the old Spurs, if they had that feature, you tap the flying beat and it
went
drops down.
That other
Manual.
car had that.
Yeah, you can tap it, but so this one, if you tap it, it doesn't go down. No.
What other questions do you have on this car?
The convertible top I was talking about. Let me grab the manual.
Oh, you want to know about stopping it midway?
Stopping it midway.
Tom, the other thing, if you haven't done it or haven't had anybody do it, this has these pollen filters that need to be swapped out, and they're real easy to do. But there's one here and there's one over there.
Okay. Pollen filters, all right.
Yeah, if you don't change them, it burns up your fan.
Yeah, exactly.
Where are those, Al?
Right here. You pull these two out, and it just
Yeah,
lifts
the
out of
filter's
there.
right in there. Yep.
And you just get them from Albert's.
And they're the same size, same side, other side.
Yes, convertible top or hood? Top or hood, yeah.
Hood. All this is just give you enough to stick the engine in, otherwise don't fool it. Deal up.
I don't know. Don't know.
We have one guy in our shop who's trained on these cars and and also like the 13, 14, 15 Mulsans, and there's very, very little that we can tell just looking at the car from outside. Everything depends on the test tools. Tools will tell us, how it's been driven and how everything's set. Everything's configured in electronics, and a lot of the performance of this thing, how it acts, it's all software configuration as opposed to mechanical repair. He's looking for the.
So the tops doesn't have the same problem on these.
No. If you run this top up and down, even though there's a question about whether the top can be stopped midstream, if you watch it, you're going to find as it goes, first of all, this mechanism is simpler, and it does not have the. It doesn't have as many actuators. The hoses are a different material. The whole thing is different, and it's cleaner back here. Did you find it in the manual?
No.
And John, your feeling is it is quite superior to the old design then?
I think it's better, yeah. I think that we should probably just bring this thing back to the hotel and look at it.
Okay.
I think that the Arnage is like a next level up in performance and reliability from a spur, and if you drive an Arnage and a spur for a while, I think that's really evident, and so this thing is an Arnage convertible, and the previous Azure is a silver spur convertible. So the same evolution applies. And because even though the Azure is built on a Continental R platform, a Continental R and a Spirit, a spur, they're basically all the same. They're all, it's just differences in length. So this is a totally different thing than that. And I think that for that reason, it's going to give all of the performance improvements that you see. The other thing in this is the previous Azures are kind of notorious for body flexing and twisting if you ran them on bumpy roads. And this has, when you put it up on the lift, you'll see it has these two huge carbon fiber X braces underneath it that significantly strengthen it. And this car has markedly less of what I think they call it cowl shake than any previous Rolls-Royce or Bentley convertible. It probably doesn't matter to a lot of people who drive them at our age, but nonetheless, that's the fact. It's just
John, when
tighter
did this
and better.
body style, the Arnage convertible series, come about?
They
05?
made this from 2006 to 2010. I thought they
just
only
there's a
made it
6.
to 9, but I guess they made it in 10.
So it starts in 6. So it's the.
I would have to look and see. I think it might have been a 2007 model year was the first, and then they had 7 to 10 maybe is 3 years. So this car might have been produced in 6 and is a 2007 model. So when was it built? Open the door and see. Look at the build.
2007.
Yeah, okay. We can look and see when production started. I can look in my computer when we get back to the hotel if you guys want to know, and I can tell you tomorrow. So, another thing about these is the 99 and newer Continentals and Arnages had a seat, and also the final series Corniche, they had a seat that came out of like the BMW 850, and that seat used these gear mechanisms and cables, and they broke when they were brand new. I've gotten those cars into us with 2,000 miles on them, and the seats twist when you move them forward, backward. You move them up and down, they twist and jam. Sometimes when you do the fold forward button and it starts to fold, it goes forward and jams, and then it breaks the cables, and you can't even drive the car. And so this car has a completely different seat. So that was like a major problem. Every Azure I've pretty much ever seen has had seat failure.
You mean the early ones?
The ones, the 96 to 03 ones, yeah. And I've seen like really low mileage cars that, you know, that just break.
And you had to put the old trashy, same type of part back in, I suppose?
Yeah, we basically have to fix it with the mechanism it came with, yeah.
Which is going to fail again.
Probably. I mean, you know, sometimes when we repair cars, we don't have a way to fix the underlying problem. If the mechanism is too weak,
Badly designed.
we can't make it stronger. All we can really do is fix it. It's like that with oil leaks, right? We can rebuild the engine and we can do certain things to make it more reliable. But if it had gaskets that were prone to leaking, they're still going to be prone to leak when we put the new ones back on.
Well, you know, like on Al's car when you were talking about the gaskets being repaired, and then you can drill that bolt to be wider to give it more stability. That's when you can actually kind of fix it to make it better.
Right, but even then, we can't necessarily engineer out oil leaks because sometimes they don't provide enough space for the gaskets to seal.
Big truck show?
And it would be very difficult for us to change that.
Tom, what else?
Okay. All right, we can look underneath it, yeah.
John, is the hard
John, do you have any questions?
What's that?
top to this was the Brooklands,
Yes.
the limited production Brooklands was basically this in a hard top.
Yeah, and that's an even more rare car.
That's a pretty car,
That
isn't
is-
it? Oh, that's a pretty car.
I first saw that
Yeah,
at
that-
Williamsburg when they brought it out.
that-
That is the best, beautiful car they've ever made.
Yeah, that is its own thing. That so I drove one of those I did a filming thing with Bentley at Lime Rock Raceway, and then I drove it on really rough country roads, and that was the most solid, silent Bentley I was ever in. It gave me the same impression that being in one of those new Rolls-Royce Phantoms for the first time, that just being solid, and it didn't flex, it didn't creak.
It is a gorgeous car.
Yeah.
Did you want to ask about the leather? Was
Yeah,
that
I
what-
wanted to ask about the leather, how the leather looks
See how it's crinkly there in the
crinkly
middle?
in places.
And we've seen all of them look like
And
that.
we looked online and all of them look like that.
Yeah, so
All of them look like that for some reason. The type of
they,
leather?
yeah, I'm trying to think what the word for that is. What did he say? It's ruching or something. There's
I mean, it's part of the design.
yeah, there's Richard Vaughn.
Richard Vaughn?
He could tell you what the term for this is, but this is a style of leather that makes it look like it is like gathered leather on a fine sofa at home.
Okay.
And he told me that this is, between the leather used and the way it is put in, this is a much more expensive process than what's in the lower model Bentleys.
Okay.
I don't remember the word for it, but he would know if you asked him.
My 97
Just,
Buick had that too, of all
Yeah.
things.
Well, he does interiors in Detroit,
Right.
and they do he's done that like in Lexus, and it's there's some, and they put it in like the special models. So whatever it is, it's a special thing. So, do you have other things you wonder about on it?
Just that low
So it's a
Okay, well, we'll put it up in the air, and see.
All right.
Yeah, that's how they're made. Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
Swap them out.
Okay, well,
Things I would draw your attention to. This is the massive carbon fiber bracing I told you about. there's another brace at the back of the car, see?
I see.
So this is the bracing. You'll notice that this car has suspension the same as the Arnage. This is not the suspension that's under the Spurs, Turbo Rs, Continentals we looked at earlier. So here you see the same ball joints we've been looking at on the Arnage, same control arms. And if you look up here, all this stuff is the same. Now that ball joint's blown out on this car. Where's our fellow that owns?
He's right next to you.
Oh, okay. So this car, if you look right there, can you see what I'm shining the light on?
This up here?
Yep, that ball right here. Yeah. This ball joint is failing. That boot's broken.
All right.
So this car needs the same repair that we called out on the two Arnages. The dealer's gonna have to take these arms off, put new joints and bushings in, and put them back on. Of course, Pete can do it. But doesn't this car still have warranty?
No, this is a 2007.
I thought you just bought it last year.
No, that was a Mulsanne. Oh, yeah, we just bought it last year, but not.
So this doesn't have a Bentley certified warranty?
No.
You bought it privately.
Oh, okay. Well, if you don't have a warranty, yeah, you're gonna have to. Yeah, Pete can do that. Yeah, there's no special challenge to doing it. I figured if the car was in warranty.
It's not a big deal, just.
It's not Richard Gorman.
Cross member that.
This is the stiffener. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, saying that could be.
Now another.
On the convertibles?
What's that? The stiffener? Yeah. Yep. So another thing about this is this car requires a different test system from the Bentley GTCs and the Omitech for the Arnages. So this requires a newer Bentley laptop. I don't know the name of the test tool. I'd have to get that and tell you. But this is a different test tool for this car from the previous Bentleys. So you got to make sure you have whoever works on it has that tool.
Probably have.
Just make sure he has a tool that'll do a new style or a new style Azure.
Okay.
Because this is not the tool that does the 2003 Azure.
Okay.
And
Could you go back and reinforce older cars with something like this?
so these are 2-year-old tires.
They are? I just had it put on like a week ago.
Be that as it may, they are dated 51-15.
50 first week of 2015.
So we are almost 3 years old. Week 51 of 15, so we're just under 3 years old. We're 2 3/4 years old.
Well, it depends on how they've been
10 years.
stored.
They should last 8 to 10 years.
Oh, okay. We'll wear them out.
And make improvements, use the technology.
See, this joint's bad on this side.
The older cars better.
The one on our left.
The one the lights on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. They changed the joints now. They don't change the arms anymore. They used to change the whole arm. Now you get a joint.
It'll probably ride a lot better.
Probably that may be clunking in the car. You might be hearing it. See, now this car has much bigger bushings. See how these were bad on the other cars? And see how they've reinforced them? And they've also reinforced this, so this whole structure is beefier.
Okay.
So that's just a design improvement on this car.
Could you take an older car and put beefier bushings on it to help? Or that's just not possible?
You probably could, but it would be one of those things where I'm sure buying these shocks and bushings would be, $5,000-6,000, and the bushings are only a few $100 repairs, so it probably just wouldn't make sense.
Wow, is this a fuel tank protector kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a shield. Yeah, it's like a.
When you back up onto a curb, protects your mufflers.
This isn't a fuel tank. This is the shield. This is the batteries and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, this shield protects all that. Wow. So that's a kind of a neat little thing.
Nice feature.
Yeah, cool.
And another thing that's interesting about these is if you look, if we can see it here. Well, you can't see it here, but I had another one of these that was damaged in the back. And so we pulled the back bumper off to repair it. And we found that it had quality control inspection stickers in both German and English. So it looks like a major part of this thing is built in Germany and shipped to England for final assembly. I hadn't realized that. So the old Azure is totally built in England. This one is to a significant degree built in Germany and shipped here, because I found German language stickers in here, and I also found them in front. And I had never seen that on a previous convertible. But if you look inside the bodywork of a GTC, I know GTCs, those bodies are made in Germany, and they're all German. So, all of this stuff here, too, if you look at this is all better quality finishing than a GT. So if you were to pick up a GT and look back here, all this detail of finishing, this is all better than the $250,000 car. Even stuff like this, see, like there's no sharp edges here. This is all, cut smoothly and finished. This is just, this is all, there's no bare metal here. I don't think we have a new GT to compare this to, but if we did.
Dale has one.
I've got one within 1 year of this.
Okay, well,
It's
we
coming
can
in
put
next.
it, yeah, we can put it up
It'll
and
be
see.
here next, yeah.
This is really nicely done, and especially it's nicely done when you recognize that it's a really low volume product, because they're making 10,000 of those, of those GTs at a time, and these things they're making 100 of at a time. So, this, from what I can see, this is the highest quality, like micro production car the Bentley factory ever made. It's all this stuff is, if you looked at like if you looked at a coach-built car from the 80s or 90s, a lot of that stuff was just really homemade. And there's really nothing homemade about this car. So that's kind of nice.
I know you're absorbing all of this about your possible.
Did you say this had 30,000 miles on it?
31,000.
Yeah. So on this car, that we talked about transmission service on these ZF transmissions. This plastic pan, when you see these plastic pans, the filter is integrated into the pan. And so you pull this pan off, and these bolts are one-time use. You throw them away and change them. You change this filter, and you go through here and you fill the fluid. It's the same thing. It's a big rigmarole to do it. But if you're going to keep this car as like a lifetime thing, given that it's already over 10 years old, it probably would behoove you to change all these undercar fluids.
Okay.
And I would also I would do the the brake fluid and the brake hydraulic fluid. I would do all that too.
There's something leaking here.
Yeah, I do all that. Oh yeah, this has, looks like this has the start of leakage from the steering gear. I think this leakage here, this is basically the same setup as the older Arnages. And I think you'll find this a $5,000 gear, and it doesn't leak enough to really warrant $5,000 of repair. I'd probably just leave it alone. I've also seen those, a leak like this, it just probably isn't enough to bother you in service.
Would that be why the low hydraulic fluid indicator was on? Or that's different fluid?
It could be, because nobody might have checked it for a year. It might be that.
Are you talking about the power steering?
Oh, it's been coming down this way.
Yeah, this car I think this may be using the same reservoir for this and the brake hydraulic booster. So yeah, I think it could well be.
Okay.
The earlier cars had separate reservoirs of hydraulic oil for the braking system and the steering. But I think this car uses one hydraulic reservoir for both.
It just has one tub up there.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is, yeah. So in that case, that's probably the source of it, putting the light on.
Don't worry about it.
Well, I think if you put the light on and the light stays out for 6 months or a year, I don't think it warrants repair if the light comes on in 3 weeks. But I don't think it will. I think this is a really minor leak.
Because I drove it for a year before that even happened.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, if that's all it does, I think I would just top it up and leave it be. I can't see the brakes on this car because of how they're set up. You know what I would do, I think, is I would just ask Pete to take the wheels off and look at the brakes.
Okay.
I think that when you're looking here, you can see the backing plate right here. And just, this is the backing plate that my finger's on.
Okay.
And just from what I know of how thick the backing plates are, this car is probably pretty close to lighting the light at the change limit. But I can't see it to tell you for sure because I just can't get the right angle to look at it. I wouldn't be surprised if you had him pull that off if he told you they were close. Okay. And if you were going to do all this other stuff, you know, let's do that at the same time.
Okay, I'm gonna move us along.
But this is that's a good car.
Sorry.